Yeah, so Job is in Europe, I believe, on traveling, and Russ's 50th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah. Must have been a child bride. Yeah.
Well, he's 70.
Is he really?
1 month older than me, so he probably just turned 73. Birthday's got to be right around now.
Uh-huh.
Mine birthday is October.
So hopefully we'll still get Callie, and we'll see from there. So 3:02, let's get started. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I did forget one member. Sarah is getting married tomorrow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I did not know that until she apologized for missing the meeting.
Did you? Did
Yeah,
you
we got 4.
say that you were upset that you didn't get an invite, or?
That's the day before. What's it's tomorrow. What's the problem?
I'm just going to go with typical men. I am outnumbered.
I will wait until we have a little bit more of our members here before I ask for a recording secretary. In the meantime, I will continue to take care of that responsibility. I did send the minutes from the June 12th and the August 28th meetings in advance. Hopefully everyone had a chance to read them. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Maureen?
So at this point in time, the update, it just is the city's getting ready to kick off the budget season. And so Paul is starting to work with the department heads on putting their 2026 budgets together. The process will follow. We're trying to get it done a little bit earlier this year than last year. We sort of ran, I think, a little late. We were sort of towards the end of March. Usually we like to see things a little bit before that time. So Mr. Dietrich is here. Just to put you on the spot, do you have a time frame for when you anticipate the meetings?
Yes. So I'm sure everyone watched the council meeting the other night. We are getting a new CFO at the city, Lauren Reed. So I'm going to have a little pre-budget. I have to kind of meet with her ahead of time just to kind of do that. And I anticipate on the next council meeting on the 21st to be able to announce what those days in November when we're going to have our public budget meetings. And just to kind of follow up on what Councilman McDade said, the budget kind of got a little bit delayed last year because of some auditing and numbers that we needed to have. Kind of the base budget was ready, but from all the departments putting in their numbers, but there were some auditing numbers and state numbers that kind of delayed us in getting the final budget. So yes, it was a little bit late, but that's what's the lateness of it. But I anticipate having the departments go through all of their budgets in November so that we'll be able to at least send council those maybe not the full budget books, but at least the departmental end of the budget books. Might not have all the final year-end audit, because you need a lot of year-end audit information to put the final I's and crossing the T's for the budget.
So one of the other things is that this past year, Mr. Dietrich and the administrative team have worked on a number of the collective bargaining contracts. So that is a huge component, along with currently actively working on the police, but we have a pretty good sense of where that direction would go. And that drives, obviously, pension, which is a huge component for both the police and fire. And then we are actively working on the 2026 health benefits renewal. So between those three pieces, it does represent the bulk of the departmental budgets. And then it's the operating expenses and capital, which is capital is really done a little bit separately from the operating budget. So most of the numbers that would be relative to the operating budget are going to be known because the contracts are set. Yeah.
Because that is, I forgot, that was one of the, we kind of negotiated several of the contracts ahead of when the budget was, but we were all trying to figure out, okay, the ones that we didn't have negotiated, we were trying to get them into a spot of where we thought the numbers would be because that's a lion's share of what the budget increase was, is salaries, that we needed to make sure that we submitted a budget that could accommodate that, because we had 6 collective bargaining agreements plus another 2 individual contracts that we were dealing with.
So thank you, Paul. A couple of just maybe more curiosity questions for the process. So when people roll up a budget request, is there a specific, have we given guidance that says, we're trying to keep it to X percent, or an expectation that you're going to hire 10 people or have fewer 10 people or whatever? Are there kind of guidelines that are given?
My guidance,
We have an attorney, labor attorney,
yes.
one hander, I mean.
Yeah, the labor attorney's involved in all of our collective bargaining agreements and discussions. But to go to your point, Ron, this year, especially because we have a new CFO coming in, I told at our last department head meeting, as you're preparing your budgets, plan on cutting 5% of what you got, and then you need to justify everything from essentially 95% above and have kind of have a justification point of why we need to renew. I mean, I've had some preliminary discussions with Public Works, who, his account handles all of, like from buildings and grounds standpoint, all of the electric and South Jersey, the gas bills. Well, as we all know, those bills for even our private bills are exceeding what we paid last year. And he's like, well, Paul, does that eat into my 5%? And I said, no, that's part of your discussion point. It's like, you can estimate based on this year's usage what you're going to need for next year. And, that's kind of like what our healthcare costs are. That's a cost that we can't control, but for going around the thermostats every other day and trying to tweak thermostats up and down, or making sure we've turned the lights off after we leave a room, but that's only going to save you 5%, if at most, but it's going to take a lot of effort to do that. But I said, you got to have that discussion point that says, asterisk, this line item is going up because the utilities increase their pricing. So that's kind of I want them as much just so that we know, but they also need to have that good conversation we have a new CFO coming in to help her understand each of those departments' budgets. So as she works with me to fine tune and develop what we want to submit to council, she has a better understanding of what the departmental needs are on an individual basis.
And also I'm sorry, Ron, just to tie into that a little bit, from a council perspective, we pretty much have known, at least just since I've been on council, where the departments stand year in, year out for the last 3 years with regard to personnel needs. 2 things that we've done this past year is working with Paul. I recommended implementation of an FTE allocation by payroll, and they have done that. And the second thing is that Paul and I worked on an employee justification, so that when an employee, we have a resignation and, he asks for a replacement, there's a justification form that he fills out and sends to council. Now, for the most part, it's sometimes it's needed, right? If it's
routine.
It's routine. It's a fireman, but I've said it's the discipline to do it, because there will come a point in time where we're going to start, questioning what a position is and whether or not there's economies and, whether or not we need to postpone hiring for 6 months, the normal things that you do sort of in a business environment. So Paul has been very receptive to that, and some of the things that I did in a healthcare environment, which my targets used to be a 10% cut every year. It started at 10% below where I was the year before and worked my way back up. So we've implemented some of those things, which is not standard municipal practice, and brought more of a disciplined business approach to it. So,
and we've also spent a lot of time moving where expenses are allocated to make sure that they're accounted for in the correct department. And, this year, here again, Public Works is finding some more things, like for this was the first year that we moved fuel and gasoline. Before, it was all charged to Public Works. So from a Public Works standpoint, if you looked at their budget, that department paid for all the fuel and gas for the entire city. That means the police department didn't get charged for any fuel, the fire department, or the construction office, beach, so we've, this past year, and everybody's like, oh, I didn't account for that in my budget. And I said, well, that's, we had to estimate some of that usage because we didn't have some of that granular data to do it. So this is really going to be the first year to, because we're going to see a lot of our, when the fire department had their fuel line, we didn't necessarily estimate enough in there to account for that. But what we're going to see is the Department of Public Works fuel line is going to be a little bit less because they didn't have to account for as much fuel. So, but that all goes to when we get the request, well, how much does it cost to operate Department X? Previously, unless you really did a deep dive, you'd have to, okay, that's that, but then you'd have to go to maybe 3 or 4 different other locations to manually add in that. If council wants to,
The fuel thing, I mean, that's easy because every one of it.
oh,
is
we
registered.
track, we track,
You can track that
Right,
in a
right.
half
but,
hour.
but we weren't.
But we weren't
getting
budgeting it that way,
We weren't
Bob.
budgeting
Right.
it that way.
Right.
I know, I hear what you're
So,
saying.
so now,
But
yeah,
it's easy to say,
Every-
you owe this much,
Yeah.
you owe this much.
when we get the fuel delivery truck, it gives us a printout of the gallons. They print out, they go to the fuel log,
Yeah.
print out, okay, what's been the last thing? And then we look at the usage. I mean, is it an exact gallon for gallon? No, but it's a good.
It's more direct, it's more in line with the actual.
They're eventually getting
Right.
charged for the
Right.
gallons of fuel and gasoline that a department's using.
The other thing
Salary
that-
was the
yeah,
other thing that we
yeah,
really
The
looked
other
at.
thing that's really has helped, it's helping develop leaders. So now the department heads truly understand what the cost is to run their department. Where, not to be critical, but they only understood what the operating line was for the personnel. But they didn't know healthcare benefits were in a general admin. Everything was in the general admin, and what was in their budget was only their salaries for, their personnel. That does not help you when you're trying to partner with someone to get them to understand and appreciate, here's the reasons why we need to make these adjustments, or why we're putting, a tap on the brakes on hiring right away. Because now you've got them, they're at the table, they understand what their total budget looks like. That was not the case 3 years ago.
And it also helped us appropriate from the current fund to the other utilities, so that, before, beach tag and lifeguards' fuel was never charged to their line, or the repairs to their equipment, or, so there's a lot of things that we're going to be able to move from the expenses from the current fund and salaries
To put it into
to put it into the utilities
Right.
to where it should be.
So do you think
I mean, and I'll say from the water sewer department was always pretty much, I think their silo was pretty good, except for maybe fuel and vehicle repairs. But, from a salary standpoint, that's why Maureen asked us to do that. And we spent all summer, and, the department's like, why do we got to do this? And it really was an education process to get them to understand, let's put it in the right bucket so that we can account for it and help justify, that helps justify expenditures.
Yeah,
You
I
got to
guess
know where it's going.
I really appreciate you doing that. Two comments, I guess. One is, it'd be great, I assume that once it moves over there, then the managers who have responsibility for that expense are really well versed in it. So I won't pretend to know what it takes to run a police force, but it's just on our walk to Acme, there's always 8 cars just running idly, and maybe that's the rule,
So-
have to leave them running all the time?
Well,
But they're
so-
always just running in the parking lot.
And here's why, because I've had this conversation, I always poke chief about it, says, well, you could save your budget by turning the cars off,
Well,
but,
they're still running Sunday when I go to church.
but the reason why they have to run them is, they all have computers inside.
Electronics, yeah.
Electronics, and the computers, so if they turn off the car, they have to turn off the computer. That computer takes about 10 minutes to fire back up.
Yeah, I understand.
So if they turn everything off and they're in here during a report, and they get a call, and then they have to get out to their car, they don't have access to information to do
No,
their job.
so
So,
that makes
so.
perfect sense, but
so
there's
that- so
probably another way to solve that.
I get that, but
Yep.
that's,
No, that's perfect.
and that's part of the rationale of that. And the batteries in the vehicles just aren't supportive enough to be able to have.
Bring it up a little bit, a notch or two. It's a little down in the weeds.
No, we are. I guess my whole point is.
But that is a good point. I mean,
It's-
because that's
as
something
long
that
as-
everybody sees.
As now they have exposure to their actual costs, they can make an intelligent decision on investing in money to solve that another way, or say that's the best way to do it, which may very well be.
No, I'm having, they're saying, oh, that's my box of copy paper. No, that's your box of.
Paul,
So
the-
it's getting down to a point of.
The 5%, was that budget to budget, the 5% initial cut?
Just looking at last year's.
So if they're under
appropriation.
or over for this year, that doesn't factor into that calculation, but could be a part of their justification.
It's just, I just want them to use that as, to start their justification point. I'm not, we'll go through each line item and make that analysis of, hey, whether that's justified or not, or what we need to do. But, once we get the global picture of, okay, are we hitting our 3% in the cap? Where are we with a 0-cent tax increase? Those are the two marks that we have to hit. Okay, if we're above that by X, then we have to go back in, okay, let me find out which is truly justified, or ones that we can say, hey, let's cut here, so but that's part of that where we have to get to.
And the public meetings, as I understand it, is that anyone can attend, including
Anyone
Democrat
can.
members, but there's no dialogue. It's just informational.
Generally informational, yes. I mean, after the sessions I've had, yes.
Disruptive for the department heads. It's nice to be there, you listen, you hear, you get a better appreciation. But even as council, we go to very limited meetings because it really is supposed to be their time as a department head to do it. So I would well imagine that it would throw some people off their game if you started asking questions in the middle. So I think it's nice to attend when you can, but,
One of the expectations.
Yeah, it's to be a respectful.
In the last 2 years
Sidebar.
that I've participated there, a representative from Mtrac has been at those meetings.
Was there anything else in your? Okay. Thank you, Paul.
No problem.
Feeding into that, the municipal budget appropriations CAPS project. So we are making good progress. Mike, we have a subcommittee because of quorum requirements. We can only have 3 people, but Mike and Ron and I have met on this and talked about some of the things that we found from the initial meetings. I think our next steps are, we are looking to schedule a little bit of time with the mayor to make sure that we are focused on what his expectation was at bringing the subject to our attention, and then also with the city's auditor, Leon Costello. I think that would be a helpful next step for us to be able to understand. We have seen some things, at least initially, from the schedules that we've been provided with by our now former CFO, that there are some observations that we've made. They seem to be relatively basic, so we're wondering whether there is an explanation that we're not grasping, so we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. But I don't know that we'll really have anything formal in time to be able to influence this year's budgeting process, because that's already underway. But again, just to serve as a reminder, the city is restricted to, in basic terms, 3.5% of last year's budget to come up with this year's budget, with many items exceeding that, some items not, and the utilities being exempt. So the city is very much aware of how they need to go through that process. Our task as a committee is to look at the process and say, well, we're not seeing this, we are seeing that. What kinds of observations can we have as outsiders? Anything that either of you gentlemen want to add to that?
No, I think you said it well. Thanks, Martin.
Okay.
Actually, let me back up.
Sure.
There is one thing. So I think we should challenge ourselves to at least come up with a couple of recommendations, even for this year's budget process, as things to think about. Because if during the budget process we identify a push against a cap that does not allow us to do whatever it is that we're trying to do. And if we could say, hey, in this process, you could shift, I'll make it up, 100 grand over to the beach utility because they use $100,000 worth of fuel, obviously, whatever the cost is, that may enable us to even make this budget more successful. So I think we should at least challenge ourselves for a couple of ideas.
It's a fair recommendation. I'm sure that we can come up with some things. I mean, obviously, we want to make sure of our facts before we present
exactly.
anything.
Sure.
But I can see a couple of things that we could think about there as I think about it off the top of my head.
So Martin, I apologize. I'm not aware of what this project is, so maybe you and I can have, I wasn't aware that,
Oh, we talked about it last meeting. Okay.
yeah, I didn't know that, wasn't sure of what direction Zach had given you, the mayor had given you. I know you had talked
Okay,
about.
we'll talk offline.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks.
The second project that was on our docket for this year that is progressing is the beach concession agreements. Maureen and I have met with the city manager, and we've had several good discussions. The most recent one was last week. And I guess the way I would summarize it is that the current plan is to continue with the same parcels as we've offered in the past, but the city manager has done a significant amount of digging into the data to look at how much are we charging per square foot in the different parcels, because they're very different. The parcels are used in very different ways. I had mentioned at our last meeting that there is we're intending to follow an à la carte approach, meaning that there's a certain entry fee for that parcel, whether it's a hotel parcel or a regular parcel, I think is the other term, which is pretty much everything other than what the hotels do. And then to the extent that you want to put in beach boxes or put in cabanas in that parcel, or more than an allocation of a certain number of rows of chairs, there's an additional charge. So it becomes voluntary for the concessionaires.
Beer.
Whether they want to expand beyond what the base fee is or not. Did you have anything you wanted to?
No, other than, that has been the model that we sort of have been exploring, and it may wind up being the model, or we may come back and, say, well, further review, we're going to go in a different direction. I sort of recall when we started with the whole shared services for the court administrator, we got in the weeds quite a bit and found that when we surfaced again, it was easier for us to be able to promote it in that way. So I think that this has been a couple of really good conversations about understanding the parcels, as Martin has said, as well as what the square footage is and the services that are on there. To make sure that we truly understand the value of what the concessionaires are getting and how it's being used.
So just a question I have on that is, do they have to report to us their income for the year? Or do we see any financials, or is this all private?
So up until this point in time, Mike, that's not something that's shared. It's, they bid on the lot, the parcel, and provide what services they're going to put in that location. How much they charge to the public and how much their income is and how much their payroll is or any other operating expenses has not been part of the discussion in the past.
Paul, did you have something to add?
Yeah, because I'm trying to think how we would introduce that.
And that's where the lights, because each, especially, I guess, let's talk about retail separate from hotels. So from a hotel perspective, a lot of them don't charge. It's like it's just an amenity to their room. As much as they would offer coffee service in the lobby, you get an umbrella and two umbrellas as.
I don't think it's a matter of trying to control it. I think it's a knowledge perspective. And we did actually, in the
Once they bid, though,
they're free to do what they want, right?
Yeah, that's what
Right.
I'm saying.
But I think what we did was we looked at how are each of the different zones utilized, because you look at some zones, like I'll say on the retail zones, sometimes there's a lot of, I'll say, fixed cabanas. A lot of them at least have a small concession stand. Some of them have maybe a more elaborate concession stand. Sometimes it's just two people underneath an umbrella and they're servicing.
Control the size of concession stands.
Yeah, but also the number of beach boxes
Yeah.
that each beach has. If you go down the beach, down by the cove, there's a couple blocks that have 40 or 50 beach boxes at one location. Now, granted, it all may be within one zone, but within that zone, there could be 70 or 100 beach boxes, but down further in another retail zone, maybe the same square footage size, they may only have 20. So it's, obviously a lot of that is market driven. So you can, I'll say in the retail zones, you can go online and
Minimum bids, we set the minimum bid.
we set the minimum bids.
Well,
So,
they should always be a lot higher than they were last year.
well, but that's what we looked
I
at.
don't know about a lot, but it should be.
And that's what we tried to look at, how each of the different zones are utilized, how many beach, because it's kind of easy to go online. You can look to see what a beach box is charged for a season. You can see what, a rental for one of those, I'll say, physical cabanas are used. Now, the cabanas, some are used more than others.
In my
and-
mind, it's like the tax assessor goes around this part of town or this street, is more.
And I think that's the
And it's the
exercise.
same way along the beachfront, in my mind, anyhow.
But we have a partnership with those hotels as a city, right? And with those concessionaires. Those services make Cape May more attractive. That leads to additional 3% occupancy fees that the city gets. It leads to additional parking. That leads to the restaurants doing more business. But so to come through and say, well, we know that they're getting a bargain. We're just going to double them or triple them.
I didn't say that.
Oh, I'm just saying. But what we did do, Mike, was that we found out how much does a beach box cost, and therefore, in setting our fee, is the fee that proposed fee is the fee that we're thinking to charge reasonable or not. Once we knew how much they were charging, that helps us to understand what kind of profit they're showing.
And that, my point is that when you do have 50 boxes at $800 a box, you're talking about a $40,000, and that's not $40,000, and you build one of those boxes for about 20 bucks.
20 years ago.
But yeah, well,
They use it
plywood's
over
more
and over,
expensive.
believe me.
Well, let me tell you, they're crap. I rented them for many, many years.
But
My point is, no more than, look, I love that everybody's making money. I'm assuming that we're competitively bidding this stuff out, that we don't keep giving it to the same people over and over again. I know that's got to be part of the discussion here.
Yeah.
And again, all I was suggesting was that, look, there is such a thing, leases can be set on a percentage of revenue. Now, the problem for the hotel, I understand that, but there are other things you can do for the hotel. And I was just asking out of curiosity. It's all
And
been
I think
considered.
stepwise, we're heading in the right direction. The approach that the city manager has come up with, I expect will lead to additional revenue for the city, but that is determined on a very fair, objective basis. It's not, because nobody knows how the fees got set, right? But, so, there's that, but then it's up to each concessionaire to decide what services do they want to offer. If the price is too high, offer fewer boxes. If the price is too high, offer more boxes. That's up to you as a business person to decide how to do that.
And I would say, from a boxes standpoint, I think boxes are probably a thing the city would want to encourage, because for every box that's down there, that's probably one less car that's looking for parking closer to the beach, because then that person can either walk or ride their bike to the beach and don't have to worry about, transporting their stuff, from a further away location to get to the beach. So I think it does have a benefit to have boxes on the beach, because it's.
They're great. I mean, they were a family saver, for sure, for us. Two families fit in one box, lots
Whole
of
family
lots of
inside?
chairs and
I guess
when they were young.
Do that, Mike, the two families go together and
Yeah.
take a box.
But yeah, no, they're extremely valuable. Love just getting on the bike, riding down with a bag for food and.
So the timing is that we expect to have something more concrete to consider as a committee in December, with the bidding process occurring in early 2026. Any other questions or comments?
I was just going to say, I would like us to encourage us to look at either A, the behavior we're trying to encourage. Are we trying to encourage more or less of one thing or the other, and the price would be set, based on that? And the second thing is there a cost to the city for some of these things that we should be recognizing? And I don't know that there is, but. Yep.
The only commodity.
Actually,
asset-
actually,
I'm sorry.
sand
Yeah.
could be going up because, as you saw, the federal government did not propose any additional or no funding for beach replenishment. So, sand could be going up exponentially if the federal government's not going to pay their 75% of the toll share, and that then, because we're only paying like 15% of the 25%, we could be having to pay 25% of the whole if it's a state and local project. So, I think when we say sand hasn't gone up, sand does go up because even from year to year, the cost of a beach fill goes up. So that, you could consider that's another revenue that we use to help fund activities on the beach.
Okay, so thank you. Thanks again, Paul. Appreciate it. Once again, progress being made and additional report out, it will be coming up. Another topic we discussed at the last meeting was we discussed the fact that we had a briefing about the, I'm sorry, I'm looking for a piece of paper that is escaping me.
You sent it out.
No. The, apologize. It's not there. Nope. The topic of the revaluation and reassessment, one of the things that we came up with was there were some questions that we couldn't answer about whether a city can only be ordered by the county to do a reassessment or not. And I had done some research that I have here somewhere. There it is. Apologies. Through the beauty of AI, I asked ChatGPT whether a city is allowed to, a municipality is allowed to increase to do a revaluation without being ordered to. And I found out that there are laws specific to that. And it said that, in our New Jersey law, a municipality can voluntarily elect to conduct a property tax revaluation. Again, meaning the definition, the distinction between a reassessment, which is what North Wildwood is doing, and a revaluation, which is when you're doing the all of your ratables by an outside party. A city doesn't have to be ordered to do that. They can volunteer to do that, but there are certain restrictions. One is that the firm being used, as we had discussed at the last meeting, that there were only two, has to be vetted. It has to be someone that is seen as being qualified. And then two, it requires that the municipality obtain approval from the director of the Division of Taxation. So while I'm not suggesting that the city is going to step forward and want to do a revaluation, the municipalities under New Jersey law can. So that was that answers the question that came up that we couldn't answer the last time of whether it was allowable.
Yep. Awesome. So we should think about whether there's any reason to make a recommendation as to one way or the other, but it's not intuitive to me as to why.
Well, so in a conversation that I had since that last meeting with the city manager, one of the reasons that we potentially would want to step forward and not wait for the county to tell us is if we see the other towns that we share a school district with doing something differently than what we are. And if we don't do something, could that potentially place us at a disadvantage relative to those other townships? Okay? So that would be a reason why we may want to say, hey, let's hasten the process as opposed to waiting until it is October now. So apparently that was what the article said. The county was going to gather this information and then let towns know. I don't see any reason to think that Cape May is going to be the first town that would be picked out of the entire state, okay? Because since the school taxes are based upon the fair market value, it's already built into how they get paid. It's a matter of how we are distributing the burden, the tax burden among our 4,100 rateable properties. Questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think the percentage will change that much, I mean, as far as the money going out.
That's why there probably are towns where the market value of properties isn't quite as well known. I mean, our properties turn over so much, it's pretty easy to get a gauge on what the property is worth.
True value.
Correct, right, right.
Understand that. Yeah.
One item of new business, there is some thought being put into whether the current off-street parking permit process is up to date or not. And specifically, whether you had prior knowledge or not, you can rent, if you don't have a driveway, you can rent a space, a parking space on the street as a residential property. This is not for commercial properties. So a residential property, if they don't have the ability to have off-street parking, can rent a space. What I've just distributed is the agreement that goes along with that, and you can see that there is a number in there under number 8 of $350 per permit.
When was that last changed?
So that's a good question. These forms are never dated, so we don't really know, but it's been quite
That's what I'm
some
saying,
time.
that figure's been around a long time.
Yep, right. Now, it does also say it shall be recalculated annually, but it hasn't been recalculated annually.
Well,
$350.
that's, yeah,
Correct. So I would say that
calculate.
what I'd like to be able to discuss today is, okay, relative to that 350, what would we see as a committee as being a reasonable recognition of how much the space is probably increased in value over the course of however long?
The way I would
it's been.
think is, once we get to that level, then we put in a kicker that cost of living index and follow that.
Right.
And that way, you can't get hurt too bad.
Right, you know,
We've been getting hurt on this thing for
Well,
years.
is it that, or is there some relationship between the meter revenue that we get from Park Mobile or whatever, the value of a space
Oh,
is perceived?
this is way below that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I'm not saying it has to be exactly the same, but is there a relationship as we
I
note
think the reason there
increases
is,
in revenue,
because
we tie it
these
to
are
this?
our residents. You know, we can't just, put
there-
in park
there's
mobile
two-
value that the tourist would.
No.
So there-
I didn't mean to say it'd be the Park Mobile value. My suggestion was that the relationship, if we see that over the years, either we raise our parking rates or it increases 10%, what we get from Park Mobile, then we would increase this 10%.
So, not, what,
Yeah, I got it,
one point of distinction, not all of these spots are metered. There is a blend of metered and non-metered. So that's the first thing to recognize. The second thing is we have always targeted numbers, for, but really putting something based on an average, revenue is probably not exacting of a science. And to the third point, that a number of these spots, the majority of these spots are residents. So to keep that in mind as you're,
Well, they're all residents. It has to be a resident.
well, yeah, and they only get one spot per
Right.
house, yeah.
So maybe I'm not.
And no, I think, Martin, we want to clarify.
If you have a driveway, you can't get one of these spots.
Yeah, and you can only get one, and Martin, it's a property owner, not a resident, at present. There's a distinction.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I understand.
So
where you-
the current agreement says the property may be owner or tenant occupied. So if it's a long-term rental, it wouldn't be the owner, it would be the tenant that would be getting the permit.
And it would have to be long-term because the license number, there's one license number that is allowed to use that spot. For the duration. So, you can't have family come down and, hey, go ahead and use my spot unless you swap tags. It's got to be the same tag
Even a family
number.
that has 2 cars, you're saying that it's only the
One
Ford
car.
Taurus that gets to park.
Well, so
Right.
this actually says that it's a parking permit that is hung from the rear mirror of the vehicle. So that may be the understanding, but it is not that the police department has to look up your license plate number. There has to be a sticker, a tag in the car, which could be changed from car to car. But I understand your point about.
Unless it's the license number of the vehicle that it's supposed to be.
I don't.
Because
I don't think it's the license plate number.
Yeah,
well,
actually it is. If you
I
look at the
remember
second page. Yep.
going through this with the problem property on Beach Avenue, quite a problem, and the owner of the property complaining about the issue. So it was clearly, it was a license number. However it's recorded, I don't know, but
I can guarantee you that probably only half of the police department even understands this.
probably not.
It's,
I guess I just wanted to go back to what Maureen,
You know what I'm saying? They don't.
what you had suggested, which is.
they don't have time to follow this.
I mean, my thought was, if the average parking spot,
They pay the
and I'll make up a
money
number,
for the year.
if the average parking spot
As
in
long
Cape
as
May
nobody
generates
bitches.
$5,000 in revenue a year, then we would set this at 10% of that, or whatever. So I'm not suggesting that we be at $5,000. I'm just saying some relationship. Yeah.
Provide clarity, and so we have been asked to make a recommendation on the fee. The other pieces of this are being evaluated by members of council.
Okay.
Okay, so it's really what fee would you want to associate with this permit?
Yeah, it's, just a point of clarity too, Bob, is that another reason for there being the license plate numbers, because what's to stop that person from selling that space, renting that space, using that space to other people on a regular basis?
So Mike, what I'm hearing is
How
that
you
you.
going to enforce that?
Well, I think you only enforce it by having one.
What I'm hearing is that we would include in our recommendation that the city continue the practice of collecting a license plate and make and model of a car.
Right,
Okay,
right.
for permit purposes to prevent the transfer of license to another party.
Exactly.
Okay? And then we've always had, Mtrac has always made recommendations that all of these fees should be subject to cost of living increases biennially.
Yeah.
Obviously, this one, while the city has been permitted to, hasn't. So I think we need to reemphasize that point.
Do we know, I mean, has it been 10 years or 1 year or 20 years, or do
I'll
we have
tell
any?
you,
It-
yes, I'll bet it's been at least.
I would say that it's most likely somewhere greater than 5+ years, Ron, so.
And any idea how many of these we have?
Well, the people that sell the
Yes.
permit should know how long it's been. Somebody in the city should know.
And you can drive around town.
100 of them, or we have?
No, we have less than 100, we have less than 70. The other thing is, just to recall, this has been on the list for this committee, along with several others that we've worked through, including the mercantile fees, development fees. We've gone through a number of the fees that have been updated. So this represents a very small number, and hadn't been looked at, and has been, is currently the entire ordinance is being evaluated, and we were specifically asked to just take a look at the fees and make a recommendation. so that when this is presented, which it will be, the recommendation from this committee would be considered.
The other point that I think did just come up is, while some of these may be metered spots and therefore the city is losing revenue, most of them probably aren't. Okay? Most of them are probably in non-metered spots. As I run through town, that's generally speaking, you see, there's often a sign. There often is a cone that is chained to the curb. Okay? So it's pretty obvious where these spots are as you go about the town. But I do think that it does make sense that if you're in a part of the city that has a metered spot, we could, as a committee, recommend that there be a different fee for a metered spot than a non-metered spot.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I think some recognition of the value of that spot.
So just to give us something to chew on, I'm just going to throw out that I would think that $500 for the regular spot, if it's been $350 for at least 10 years, wouldn't be unreasonable, okay? And then $750 for a metered spot?
So what, I see the $350 for a seasonal and $500 for a yearly. Do we have any sense for what, how many of these are,
We get into war now.
Oh, yeah.
that we have? Do we have any facts? It's fine if we don't, I'm just curious if we,
I only have the total number and the number that are, I would say, I did look at some numbers, Ron, and so I'm doing this from memory. I would say maybe a third of them might be the seasonal ones, but please don't hold me
no, I
to it.
understand. Just order of
Yeah,
magnitude.
yeah, and yeah,
Less
it's,
than 100, and you think a third of them might be.
yeah, it's less than 70 at present.
So essentially, then today, it really is 500 is what you think for the majority of them, if only a third are seasonal.
Yes, that's what I would say, yeah.
So we're saying a 50% increase. Is that what you're saying, Martin?
For which one?
Well, for any of the.
Are you
350,
saying, are you
500.
going to distinguish between seasonal, or are you going to distinguish between metered and non-metered?
Yeah, that would be the question.
So that would be my first question to
Wait,
you.
wait, are we clear on, are we going to have two different prices now?
Are you,
Well, so it's not,
Two different now.
Well, I know,
we can make a recommendation. We're an advisory committee. So all we would do is say that, well, if we feel as if it would be a simpler process, I mean, basically, if it's a resident, or somebody that is living or a tenant, they're using it year-round. I think the reason that they have this set up was because in the off-season,
No one cares.
no one cares, or cares
Plenty of spots.
less.
Yeah.
Okay? So if we feel as if it's more equitable and easier, if it just be a yearly process, we can make that
I
recommendation.
think it would be
Okay.
simpler.
Don't we put signs up?
yes, signs do go
Really
up.
take the signs down if it's for the seasonal and then
No.
put it back up in the?
But there are some streets, there are some streets that are non-metered and are full of people who live there, right? So this person wants their parking spot on that street. So I would ask if we could do this with metered and non-metered fee recommendation. Because the other pieces of this ordinance are being worked on
Yeah.
by other members of the council. So, and that was specifically what we were asked to.
No, so you're saying,
opine on.
so we're asked to recommend rates, and today, there's a rate for a yearly and a rate for a seasonal, and in reality, I would, by what we're
We're not-
saying, I think I'm hearing.
We're just having an annual permit.
Yeah, I think.
So from a,
That's
from a,
what-
from a,
What it says on here, but that's.
but that's how we currently do it.
Which the rest of this ordinance is being worked on. That's
Okay.
why I keep.
That's why
that's why not.
that's why Maureen said, the request is, we're asking you the recommendation about the fees. We're recommending a fee for a resident in the non-metered area
Yeah.
and a resident in the metered area. And it's a yearly fee.
Yep.
We've figured out how we're going to manage it, and the other piece of it, we got a good handle on how
So
we're
here's
going to
the
manage it.
issue that I see.
And if you have a short-term rental license, you are not eligible for this permit.
No, I think that's fair.
Where right now, we have the batch of them that have it. So that's what we're trying to.
The issue that I see, Paul, is that if you have been doing this on a seasonal basis, paying $350 for the last 10 years, and now we say it's $600, that's a big increase to that individual resident.
I think it's fair.
I think you're,
But they're going to have their parking spot
Guaranteed.
guaranteed 365 days a year.
the only reason they paid $350 is because they said I can get it all year by only paying $350 anyway, because their sign is still there.
Sure, but
No,
they're
we would
also
say-
saying, I don't have to fight for a spot
No.
from, after the season.
In previous years, we would take the sign down at the end of the season.
Is it?
And then have to, and this is why we're trying to change the ordinance to an annual, because it became a logistical nightmare for the clerk's office and the Public Works, that at the end of the season, Public Works would go take all the signs down, and then it became a discussion point of, now I've got a sign post with no sign, so then prior administration said, okay, now pull the post out, and then it became an issue, okay, when, the season starts here, all right, you haven't paid yet,
Yep.
and then then I had to call 811 for mark out to put the signpost out there, and then the person comes in 2 days before the thing, and they want their sign up day one, but I have to wait 10 days for mark out, and I'm wrangling with Public Works to get it in there. So that's why we're changing the
And
administration.
I will go back to this, please, again. This ordinance in draft form has been worked on by other members of council, and what this committee was only asked to do was make a recommendation on fees.
We got the rest of it.
The rest of it, and we haven't introduced that, so with all due respect,
Fees,
yeah.
though,
Yeah.
the recommendation you're asking for is not a yearly or seasonal, but it's a meter or non-meter, is what you're saying.
That is
Correct.
correct, an annual, metered or non-metered.
I say 600 and 800.
Okay,
That's
but
my,
So
the
covers
issue-
were never
The issue is,
possibility.
Because then
that's
if they didn't renew.
That's a
and-
70% increase over what they're paying now.
so where I have less, I understand.
We can make a recommendation, but we don't have to be voted in.
No, and the only, you're right.
Believe me.
Martin, it is a.
Be realistic.
significant,
Council's
increase.
not going to pass that if they are, they're crazy.
okay.
They don't want to be on council very long.
I guess what I would encourage us to think about is, it hasn't gone up for 10 years. So
Yeah.
if it had gone up $20 a year, it would be to that now.
So Ron, you hit it right on the head. When we did this with mercantile fees, when you looked at the percentages, it was 42%. But what the actual dollar amount was nickels and dimes, okay? So I get that it's about, it seems like it's very high. I'm not necessarily from where it is, but it's been there for a very long and protracted period of time. This is a convenience factor in many ways for areas that don't have parking available, or it's right in front of your house, et cetera, et cetera. You can make a recommendation on keeping it at 350. That could be your recommendation. You could make a
We're saying
recommendation.
It's really 500 today, though, is what I think I heard.
Not for some people. Okay, so let me propose this a different way. Okay? There is a step change here of eliminating the seasonal. Okay, that is additional revenue for the city.
Just, right, so Maureen's estimate was a third of the current ones are seasonal.
Right.
Okay.
My concern is, in terms of Mtrac making a recommendation, I have a hard time wrapping my head around hitting that third with a 70% increase. So going from 350 to 500 is a 43% increase. That's already pretty
I
substantial.
think that's a fair
So
price, though.
stepwise, we could say we're eliminating the seasonal.
Okay,
We're keeping the yearly at 500, but we're adding a biennial escalator. And we're going to charge more if it's a metered spot. Okay? To me, that's a bit more balanced than saying one-third of these 70 people. It's not a lot of people, but when we did raise the mercantile fees, or proposed raising the mercantile fees for the businesses, they didn't get up to the podium during city council and say it was a $15 increase. They said it was a 42% increase.
yeah, listen, I mean, the reality is, if there's truly as few of these as we're talking about $5,000 to the city in total, right? Raising from 350 to 500 for a third of, for 20 of them, right, is, what's 20 times 150, but it's $3,000. I don't know that it's worth our time, honestly, or the time of the council for $3,000 in revenue for the year.
I mean, a metered spot can get anywhere between $2,000 to $5,000
Per spot.
per spot.
Right. Yeah, so I guess I don't, you're right, Martin, that would be a significant increase. I guess
I think the bitch is gonna be about the people that live in the metered area. They're gonna say, look, you know, I've lived here for, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years, maybe 3 years.
Yes.
And this is where I live. I can't help it because the stupid city put a meter in front of my house. So that's the bitch you're gonna get. You'll have a war, believe me.
Given the fact that the meters go off at a certain point in time,
I understand where
I'm
you're
not,
coming
I'm
from,
not so
believe me.
sure that, you know, I mean,
I
if
understand
it's
where
set
you're
in stone that we're going to a yearly fee, I would want to suggest, I would suggest that we keep the yearly fee at the 500 and then add the metered fee.
All right. Well, it's all right.
That's just me, so push back.
Yeah, I guess I would just, if the numbers, and again, it's facts are our friends, and we don't really have the facts. But if we make the assumption that there are 2/3 of these are yearly now, and they've paid $500 a year for many, many years, and then what we're saying as a recommendation is they're gonna continue to pay the same $500 a year. Again, it's not a significant enough amount of money in total to even move the needle on the city's finances, so it's probably more emotional
Correct.
than it is.
It is
financially.
absolutely, and it only needs
oriented.
one person
Yeah.
okay, that brings that emotional argument forward, and it's a kettle of fish. Okay? It's not about the economics. It's about what's fair and what is the proper process to go through.
And even the people that aren't even involved in it will be like, that's terrible they're doing that to those people. That's the way it goes.
So,
What is the recommendation?
So,
Can we at
Rod,
least
you
agree?
feel strongly about 600 and 800, 750?
oh, I don't, I randomly threw those
Sure.
numbers out as some
You
increase.
gonna run for office?
And I would suggest we do this stepwise, but then
That's,
make the strength of the recommendation be every other year it goes up.
That's,
I would make it
I
quick.
can live with leaving it alone.
get
and
two
saying
steps.
It goes up every year by $25 a year, or 50, or some.
I would say that, keep in mind that that becomes, you know, it does create an operational challenge, because they have to increase these fees, both in SDL and then in Edmonds. There's a lot of maintenance that goes on. This is all manual that gets done. It's not automatic. We don't have an SDL or, you know, person on, you know, staff. So I like the every other year. It's consistent with what we've been doing from an analysis standpoint. Whatever baseline fee you want to make a recommendation for, that's really where we need to have to start. We have been, you know, we sit with Erin, we talk about these things, we know what the schedule is, so we just include this in the schedule for analysis. But I would advocate, by the time we change the ordinance on this and get the paperwork out, we got to turn around and start doing it again. So
$25
year.
every other year is 2.5%.
this is on,
Per year.
what happened, we're not doing a jump, is what you're saying?
Well, so.
Just
we're not saying
25 a year?
anything. Martin proposed 500, I said 600 for non-metered, 800 for metered. I am not passionate about, I'm throwing a number out.
hill you're gonna die on, right?
I'm sorry?
Not the hill you're going to die
No, no.
My favorite thing.
For $5,000 a year for the whole city.
So
I think look, I don't care if it's only $25,000. I'm sorry, you know, there, a lot of these spaces, I forgot that we're on mic here, sorry, I hate to say stuff like this, but they're sitting in front of $4 million homes. And I think it's a nice feature that we, in fact, give private parking, which I get irritated at when I'm trying to find a parking space. But okay, I understand, and I would want to have it too. But I think, you know, the 375 going to 500 is, I think, very reasonable. And if I were a council person, I might say 75 first year, 75 second year. We're at $500, and then after that, it's going up
Some amount.
$25 or $50 a year.
Explain a little further, what's the 75?
I'm just raising the rate, the first, I'm
I see,
doing
okay.
the baby steps for
Yep.
people that absolutely can't fathom a 65% increase.
Yep.
That they lose their minds
over, yep,
over that.
yep. Bob, what do you
I
think?
mean, it's you know,
What do I think?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think we should just, look, we'll tell the people it's $500. I don't think that's bad for a whole year. It's right in
Oh,
front
yeah.
of the house.
it
That's-
is.
I mean,
That's the rational
I don't know
side,
what
yep.
I would do if we didn't have our driveway. You know what I mean?
You'd be getting your steps in.
Huh?
You'd be getting your steps in.
Well, remembering that argument that occurred at city council, again, that was a multi-million-dollar house, and they were apoplectic over the $350.
Absolutely.
And you know
Yes.
what, for that 350 million or whatever the heck it is, they're paying taxes on that. So a lot more than.
This was actually the daughter, and she's not.
Oh, okay.
But they bought a house that had no parking.
That's exactly right.
They bought a house with no parking.
That with no parking. And in one of the worst places you could possibly pick.
All right, what do we have on the table, Joe?
So we have 425, 500, and 600.
Okay.
Oh, that's pretty good. I like that.
Year one.
But then you'd have to
Yes.
have, you'd still have to have a seasonal, because now you,
No, can I
No,
just
no
say,
seasonal.
please take.
I wouldn't.
No season.
Yeah, I would.
right, so what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is the 425 doesn't work, because who gets charged 425, who gets charged
We will
500?
determine that, Martin. That is under council.
Yeah, you're just worrying about metered or not metered.
No, what I'm
That's all you're worrying about.
I'm reacting to Mike's proposal, which is well thought, of going in a stepwise way for the people that have a seasonal, but that would mean continuing the seasonal. So it sounds to me like that's a non-starter.
No seasonal.
Okay, so the 425 is not practical relative to what the city is looking to do. So now we're down to 500 or 600. I'm happy to go either way. I'm just
I am too.
anticipating the 600 is likely to get that larger emotional reaction, and it
I
is
think
worth
so, too.
the calories.
I would say so.
500 annual metered, non-metered, or it doesn't make a difference?
Are we okay with the 500 metered, not non-metered?
Yeah.
Okay.
I-
And then I
You
think-
know, I personally, I think you should just keep it $500 for everybody, metered or non-metered, because
Are you
I'll tell
okay
you,
with an escalator?
You're gonna get that, oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, to,
Okay,
however
500
you get that.
metered, non-metered, and the escalator would be,
well,
$25 every other year.
Or
yeah, that's fine.
okay, all right. Do we
But
have
as
a-
long as there's a way you can make sure the city does put that 25 in every other year.
Well, again, we are only advising, right?
Yeah.
We're giving an opinion. It's up to the city to
Sometimes-
decide whether to implement or not.
You know, I don't know who.
If that's written into the ordinance, then you can write that in the ordinance.
And we can write that into the ordinance, Martin, if that's.
So who
the
follows through on those ordinances?
The city clerk. And council also reviews them,
That's
Bob.
good if they do.
So this is an
years and years, there's a lot of
extraordinarily
stuff that
modest
this way.
increase.
This went, yeah.
For the majority, the far majority, we're saying still have no increase. And they're gonna,
But keep in mind, Ron, to your point, this is a very small number of.
It is.
Okay, so I wouldn't get ourselves too exercised
Yep.
about the fact
No, that's
it
the way
is
I
not
feel.
going
It's
to be a
not
game
worth
changer
Just-
at
No.
the end of the budget cycle.
So
One way or the other.
So I'm just going to give you the point of view from the two because Maureen was not one of the council, there was two other council people that sat on the subcommittee to develop this ordinance. And one of the pointed discussion points were that they would routinely go by especially in the metered zone, those spots not being occupied. And I'm not talking about the seasonal ones, I'm talking about year-round residence ones, and they would not be occupied continuously, especially in the metered zones. Because because even though that was, they don't rent that out and they don't have a mercantile license, they're not there all the time.
Sure.
So there's a lot of revenue lost from a parking meter in an empty spot. And so you have people continuously driving by an empty, they're searching for a spot, they can't find one, but they keep seeing this empty spot that's there all the time. So so that's two council people's perspective of, so I would really recommend that you provide a recommendation for a
It's a very
metered fee.
fair point,
and
but they have paid for that right.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just letting you know
Yep,
from that, because Maureen wasn't at those sub.
No, I wasn't, but I
was,
will
and I'm
say
just-
to you, you're making a recommendation. Please know, and
Mm-hmm.
Martin, you understand this, they may say, thank you for the input, we respect your opinion on that number, but we've made a decision to distinct, and they have to
But even if we
present this in
charge
public.
$750 for that spot,
Yep.
that's still going to happen, and that revenue is still going to get lost. It's you know, if it's between $2,000 and $5,000, an extra $250 doesn't
Yeah,
amount to anything.
and that will be up to them to
Sure.
make that argument, so,
Why are the spaces metered?
okay.
What?
Well, because.
Congress Street. I mean,
Congress
Yeah,
Street?
there's plenty of metered spots.
Jackson Street?
I mean, but we sold the space
Windsor?
to somebody. They're private spaces. Why do they have a meter?
Meter on it, okay.
Well, no, the street has a meter. You go down the street, there's
No, okay.
there's 5 meters.
Talking about a metered
Zone.
space.
They're in a space,
Talking about it's in
a resident space in a metered zone.
In a metered zone, yeah.
Yes, there's no meter at that because
Right.
we pull the meter out and we put the sign there.
Okay.
So I think we're all clear that this is simply our recommendation. The city is free to do as they choose. If they're dumb, no, didn't say that. And the recommendation is that we go to $500 for 2026, and in 2028, it goes to $525.
That's fine with me.
And so you'll send that, Martin, to Erin, and then when this is, it will be passed along to the two council members who have been working
And
on
I'll
this
include
ordinance.
in that, a significant consideration was the elimination of the seasonal fee and the percentage increase for those seasonal fee holders that have been doing this for quite some time.
And every 2 years, we increase.
Goes by 25.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for for a robust discussion.
Oh, boy, we're going to get.
Solving the world.
Okay, as I have chosen to do, and I'll continue to do, I'd like to hear from each of you, what is on your minds, what have you thought about as you've gone through your daily non-Mtrac lives that you might want to talk about?
Yeah, so for me, I continue to think about the relationship, two things. One is what kind of our overall mission is, because I think it's not necessarily to go find different ways to get more money out of some of the same businesses that have continued to pay more money. So I want to be sensitive to that. I don't feel like that should be our mission. I feel like it should be finding alternative sources of revenue, but not necessarily from the businesses that are so vital to this city. And I would also say I'd really like to understand better the relationship between our cost as a city on some of these things and the revenue that we get as part of that. And I think some of that may be, it's all there and I just don't know it, and there's others that I'm not sure. I appreciate the discussion on, as much as it's in the details, allocating fuel to different departments because the people who can manage fuel consumption have to have responsibility for that. So that's what I mean by allocating the costs appropriately, and then if there are ways to generate revenue in alternative ways that are tied to the cost of city services or some other thing cost that the city incurs, I'm all about that. So I don't have a specific idea on that, but that's what's going through my mind.
Okay, I think that you've expressed opinions along these lines in the past.
Yeah.
This one, I think, is actually a crisper, is more clearly articulated.
Sure.
Okay? That we need to start putting energy into finding new forms of revenue, not just increasing the fees, hitting the same people for the same services over and over again.
That's right.
Okay? I'm happy to put that into the notes, and we'll put something in, make sure that it's in the minutes, that we see that as being, a large part of our mission going forward is to innovate, to try to be, not just go to the same well and keep banging in that same drum. Okay? Any others? I see something on your mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an extremely broad and complex problem, but personally, I think that we should, at some point in time, try to understand what the capacity of this city is. I think.
Are you talking about the number of people driving over the bridge?
Gigawatts that we.
Yes.
Okay, no, well,
The number of people coming into this town,
yeah.
I say at times, we've already exceeded that capacity, and we're not handling it well. And you're shaking your head, and this is what I get from a certain manager that I'm aware of that says, no, we have a, I'm going to say it's a club or whatever, and we've limited the number of members because what happens is, the real truth is that the members of the club that are there, when you bring more people in, the existing members really start to suffer because we generated more revenue. There we go. We got all this new revenue coming in, but service starts to slip. Quality starts to slip.
Infrastructure has to be invested in beyond,
Yes, everything
capacity.
starts affecting the people that started the club or have belonged to the club for a long time. And the real answer is there's got to be a cap. Now, most of the time, we don't exceed, we've got plenty of room, but it's for a limited number of time. We are out of control. We can't handle it. And I'm telling you.
Number of people or number of vehicles or what?
It's a combination of both, I think. Yeah.
Vehicle, it's people. It's definitely
Right.
people. Vehicles, people have to figure that out, but in a way it is vehicles because you start talking about building parking garages, and I say, why are you building parking garages to bring more people into what I think is a city that can't handle those people? Now, what do I mean by can't handle those people? It may be, the ability to get a reservation at a restaurant. It may be the ability to sit comfortably on certain beaches on certain days. And of course, parking does have, just driving around,
You can't drive around.
It's
right.
very difficult to drive around. Look, there's parking in this town for sure, but I'm just saying that things are uncomfortable. Let's say that we grow 10% next year. What have we done differently in this town to handle that extra 10%? And
We haven't changed the infrastructure of the roads. We haven't changed the infrastructure from transportation. What we've done is expand development of homes. We have an attractive place to come. We have good restaurants. We have art, culture. We're just not another beach town. So I take the comments that Mike's saying, and I, sort of line them up against how healthcare works. Healthcare, at a certain point, you're on diversion, okay? You can't take another patient in. You don't have the capacity to be able to care for that patient. Then you are housing them what we used to call in the ER. That's not good quality care. That's not good for the people who are trying to take care of that patient. It's not good for the doctors or the nurses. It's not good for the EKG techs. And it's not good for people who are on the receiving end. So, I sort of use that as a parallel because when you managed it. You managed it, my responsibility at one point in my career was running an ER and the entire hospital operations. When I had to go and divert as a trauma center, I had to send patients to other hospitals. Now, obviously that doesn't happen here, but it does say how many more people can come over the bridge, and where are you going to put them when they get here?
Right.
And we see a lot more day trippers.
And what's their experience when they come over the
Right.
bridge?
Yeah.
How many leave extremely disturbed and disappointed? That's the kind of thing.
No, I think it's a good question, but I think I don't know that we don't really know that.
Well,
Because more people
We-
want
They
to
have a
come,
good
I think
experience in Cape May.
that's what I think they do as well.
I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. And I think that, when I talk about the club, I'm going to tell you that it's probably only 3 or 4 nights a year that it happens, but I'm telling you, the impact is tremendous.
No, it's more,
And-
it's taking a good 40 minutes to get off the island on a
It's
summer afternoon.
Easily,
Yep.
easily. It's insane.
Yep.
On both sides.
I have turned around.
Yep.
I have absolutely turned around after trying both bridges and said, I can't
Yep.
get out of this town.
So
But
those people that came in for the day especially may not come back because of how long it took them to get out, and that,
No,
But
they come back.
There's
They
two
come back.
more that are willing to come in.
That's that, and I do believe that is what has spread out our summer into the fall. And
Sure.
people- My daughter says the island's gonna sink when she says all these people She's like,
and the clearest example was for the 4th of July night.
yeah.
My understanding was that it was still, Broadway was completely backed up at 11:30, and the fireworks ended at 10.
But 4th of July, that's everywhere. If you come into Ocean City for 4th of July, it'll take you an hour, hour and a half to leave
Right.
the island. So that's typical of that. And, and that's the same thing with the parking garage. Do you build something for 5% of the occurrences that we need it? So that's, everybody talks about, bad traffic and all this, kind of stuff. The people in, I'll say, northern Jersey and western Jersey, and the suburbs of Philly, they deal with that traffic every day. You know what I mean? Think about it. If I wanted to leave now and go to the Poconos, it takes you like an hour and a half to get from the Ben Franklin Bridge to King of Prussia. And guess what? Everybody still does it. So it's not,
Yeah.
it's heightened because of where you're at, but think of the infrastructure that they have.
Yeah, what was
What's
your,
your answer?
what was your?
What I'm suggesting is that ideas that are being generated to bring more people into this town have energy put someplace else. Energy and dollars go in another intelligent place as opposed to bringing more people into the town.
It does dovetail with what we are charged with. At some point in time, we're going to be asked to fund a transportation system, right? So if we have a better way of moving people around the island, maybe the cars aren't even coming here. Maybe they're staying off island, and then we're bringing the people that come. They
Those
want to.
ideas have been around for a long
When
time.
you think about, I don't know if you listened to the city council meeting on Tuesday. Okay. Lower Township has put in a new ordinance around e-bikes. And there's nothing in the ordinance, they can't countermand state law. They can't say, you need to wear a helmet when you ride an e-bike. You should, but they can't tell you you have to. But it makes it clearer that the police have the authority to give
I'm
you
all for that.
a ticket.
There's just a guy killed.
What
with
we are,
3
one of
grand other
the
day.
comments that was made is the people that are riding those e-bikes over the bridge are the employees that come to work in the island because they can't find parking, they can't find a place. We're not necessarily going to be able to continue to use the Lafayette Street lot forever. So I think these are good considerations for us to be thinking about longer term, putting it in the way that Mike has, that at some point in time, the level of service that we provide to our residents, visitors, and workers begins to deteriorate the higher the volume of people gets.
Well, Martin, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I've repeated this, I don't know how many times, even back when there was a parking committee. after 5 or 5:30, from Philadelphia down to Peter Shields, there's all the spaces in the world. When the beaches are on through the day, you can't get a spot there. But we don't, the city, I say we, the city doesn't promote those spaces in the evening, and they should.
I read actually, I read a book, that's how bored I am. I read a book on parking. Okay? It was very interesting. The mentality of the American public
I know, they
is,
don't want to walk.
I want to park where I want to park, and it should be free,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay?
believe that.
And parking meters actually only exist to get the spots to turn over. That was the reason that we have them. So I think I live on a street 3 blocks away from Washington Mall. I know when it's crowded, I know when it's not. I know when it's workers, I know when it's visitors, okay? It doesn't matter to people. They come in and their needs aren't being met, and therefore they leave with a negative connotation of Cape May.
Right. I mean, it's no different than, when everybody used to go to the mall, and you'd have, some people would circle the first 10 spots, waiting for that 10 spots to go, as opposed to parking out at the end, and then you could walk in and like, oh yeah, that guy's still circling, and, so it's that same, so I would like to leave everybody with this thought. So I was at a state municipal managers meeting, so all the state managers at our conference, and we had one of the speakers worked at both the state and the federal government level for different departments, and they said a lot of what we do, we think of it from the wrong perspective, and this is what she came up with. So our usual discussion is reducing tax burden for taxpayers by reducing budgets. But then we're not really serving the people that we really need to serve. So the discussion should be improve service for residents by increasing budgets. Because when you really start to think about, because if you're just concentrating on reducing the budget, you're not really truly looking at the true impact to what the residents are. You're just trying to find the easiest way to trim what budget the numbers are. And then when you have different departments all just trying to trim little pieces, what's the true effect on, because obviously municipal government is a service industry and we're serving our residents. What service are we really doing to, really we've got to examine how do we improve that process to be the most efficient for that resident.
And that's why the CAP project, that's why we're doing it. We're not looking, Mtrac is not asking the city to reduce spending. We recognize that the city, we would like to see the city increase spending, and particularly in code enforcement. We've said that many, many times at these meetings. But you can't because of the budget cap. So that's why we're putting energy into saying, are there resources within the capping process that aren't being utilized today that can allow us to expand services in the key areas?
Well, when I was in office, Jerry Gaffney, if he ever saw the surplus that we have now, he would say, give the people a break, cut it 1/2 cent if you have to. He would die. He would die if he knew how much.
But unfortunately, that cap can't be used for my operating budget.
So, Mike, it's a good point. Thank you for raising it. I think the way to sort of put it in a different way is to say that Mtrac encourages that all of the people that contribute to the city be engaged in long-term planning around ensuring that the experience that the people have continues to be enjoyable.
Well, I do think that more enforcement out there on the different.
So we can finish on that note. I wanted to let everyone know that there actually was more enforcement in the month of August. There were special duties that were done, special patrols of the mall and the promenade between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. for the month of August to remove bicycles and dogs where they didn't belong. And it was reported yesterday at the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety. It was hundreds of people.
If one more person tells me how many dogs they saw on the mall and how many bikes they saw.
So when the seasonal
That's
law
great.
enforcement officers
That's
saw
great.
that, they removed hundreds.
That's amazing.
And I just saw the police chief on the way in, and he said that's a program that will continue. So we've been asking for enforcement. They listened,
Somebody's-
and it was impactful, and it will continue.
Well, listen, I'm talking about the different ordinances, not just the dogs and bikes.
Right.
Although I think that has really, I don't know, the police department, it's given them a bad rep.
That's a way to raise some money from
But
people.
the different ordinances
It's-
out there, the sign ordinance,
It's a start, okay? The issue that we have is that we, Mtrac, believes that code enforcement should be expanded.
well,
We're not
not
thinking about-
expanded, just carried.
We're not, well, but they're already, we only have 2.
Well, yeah, but how many summonses have they written up?
I'm not talking about uniformed officers. We
No,
can't
I'm
get,
not either, I'm talking
we
about.
can't get uniformed
I'm
officers.
not talking about uniformed officers. Yeah, okay. Well, they're not compliant. I can take you, I'll go with the ride right now. I'll drive you down the street and I'll find you, I don't know how many violations of ordinances, signed ordinances and different things.
It was an interesting
I just
discussion.
think once you enforce it more, you'll get compliance. That's the way I am.
I encourage you to listen to it's right around the 45-minute mark in the bicycle and pedestrian safety. It was one of the lieutenants gave a briefing on numbers behind the numbers. How many vehicles did they stop this year versus last year? How many DUIs this year versus last year? It was a very good discussion. And yes, we shouldn't be stopping or be satisfied with just enforcing the laws around dogs and
Is
bicycles.
this in Cape May, are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah. And the discussion at the city council meeting around e-bikes, that is something that is becoming a significant threat on the island, and the city is going to be looking into what they can do to give the police more power.
I agree with you on that. All right,
All right,
Thank you all.
motion to adjourn?
adjourn. So moved.
All in favor?
Yeah, aye.
Thank you all.